And so in that ceremony, it was like a time capsule that was released, and that entity got out of my system and tried to destroy me, basically. And as I understood, I consciously agreed for it to happen in that one of my past lives, and it was sealed within my system in some sort of way by probably my teachers and my masters. And in that ceremony, I was ready to overcome that lesson, because in that lifetime I was not ready. So it was given to me as a gift for the future. For when I'm ready, it's gonna be released, and then I will manage to find that strength and that wisdom and that light within me to realize that fighting is not the right way, and to realize that basically there's so much that goes behind it. But I really felt like if I wouldn't have done it, I would have come out of that ceremony insane. That was my feeling, that it was no joke and it was a real thing.
Hello, Soul Fam. My name is Lelanea, and I am the creator and host of Conversations with Aya. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the indigenous peoples of the Amazon from Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Bolivia, especially the Shipibo Konibo, the Huni Queen, Tucano, Quechua, Ashanika, Quichua, and the many other nations who have safeguarded the sacred traditions of Ayahuasca or Yahe for countless generations. Their songs, their prayers, and their daily lives have carried this medicine forward so that it may reach us today. Yet, as the medicine spreads, we must acknowledge the challenges these communities face. Their forest homes and way of life are under assault from deforestation of big ag and oil companies. Their traditions are often misappropriated or stripped of context due to spiritual tourism. Even the common name of the medicine itself is widely mispronounced in ways that distance it from its roots. These are not small matters. They are part of an ongoing erasure of peoples whose survival is deeply tied to the medicine that we now honor. This podcast exists not to claim the medicine, but to walk humbly with it, remembering always that it comes from living cultures who continue to fight for their land, their language, and their ways. As we share these stories, let us do so with reverence, reciprocity, and respect, always remembering the source, the peoples, the forest, and the songs of the Amazon. And if these stories, the people and the medicine, inspire you, then I ask you to become an activist, protecting the rights of the people, culture, and land. This can be done with your vote, continuing curiosity in what your dollar supports, as well as the ways in which you are accessing Ayahuasca. Thank you. May you recognize the powerful creator you are, and please enjoy the podcast.
So thank you so much for having me. My name is Jurgita. I am an author of the book called Dreaming of a Life. And I come originally from Lithuania, and I would like to start by a little introduction into my origins and how it connects to the work that we do in the jungle and with the jungle, outside of the jungle. And so the Lithuanian tribe is one of the 5 Baltic tribes. Only 2 of them are still existing at this moment. And it is an Indo-European origin country, which stems from Himalaya, Tibet, Nepal, India. Lithuanian is one of the oldest language that still has very much in common with Sanskrit. there's like grammar and even the words that have the same meaning. And so my name, Jurgita, is very, very similar to many female names in Nepal. For example, I met a woman, her name is Sangita, and she told me all about how there are just so many different names just similar to it, ending in Gita. And the Gita, very famously, is known from Hindu tradition from India. And so these little details, they piqued my interest already a while ago when I was introduced to yoga. Yoga is a practice for healing depression. And interestingly enough, later I discovered that I have past lives related to Tibet, Buddhism, India itself, yogic traditions. And I learned from ayahuasca experiences that my spirit animal is a Bengalian tiger. And the short version of my name is Yurga, which is very similar to Hindu goddess Durga, who is riding the tiger, according to the legend. And these details, they literally bring the waterfall of chills up my spine when I started realizing all these connections. And the medicine work really enabled me better understand how intrinsically beautiful, cosmically connected, and divine orchestrated machines we are. Machines, I call it in a utmost consciousness rich way. But before Buddhism reached Himalaya, Tibet, the practice that was alive there, if I recall it correctly, it was called Bon, which is a nature connected way of living, a pagan tradition in simple words. But in my personal understanding, shamanism is nothing else but connecting the invisible nature realms with a physical, unconscious way of being. And so, just like in Amazon rainforest at the moment, as we experience how the wisdom of these lands and the shamanic traditions, which is basically rooted in the connection to nature and bringing those deeper realms into pretty much our everyday life. The very same thing exists or existed everywhere around the world. And we now know that the practice of rainforest shamanism is being spread out into the world consciously to preserve that knowledge. And similarly, the Tibetan culture that is oppressed since 1950s is alive only through the support of the communities around the world and being preserved by the people who feel connected to it, who feel, who see the wisdom and the knowledge in it, and who from their hearts want to cherish and preserve it. And so I see a lot of similarities in the progress that spiritual traditions geographically wander on our globe. And I do hope indeed that the Tibetan culture and the Buddhism will have opportunity to come back in its lands and be cultivated there openly again. And so I would just like to pay my homage to the Himalayan lands where I feel even in this body, my origins lie. And I'm so grateful for it. The moment I realized where the roots are leading, I couldn't be happier to be born in this little land that got to be called Lithuania. One ceremony night, beginning in the jungle of Peru, when I was there for the first time, and I've visited Peru for several times and participated in shamanic initiation process there. I stayed there in the camp for 2 months, and with the intention being initiated in the tradition, in the Shipibo tradition, and be a student. And so, surprise, surprise, 2 months were not over with the process. I didn't know that, but after coming back from Peru, there were, of course, many exciting new things happening, and I started working with my own clients, and just life really took off. And I thought, these are all the ripe fruits that I'm harvesting from those sleepless nights and deep medicine work with ayahuasca and other jungle plants. And only by the end of 3 years from that initial initiation start that I got to realize and to understand that this is the initiation. My wish was to be a student. Plants made me a student, and I took them with me. And I was confronted with the most difficult challenges at the end of those 3 years shamanic initiation period, and spent literally the rest of the time scraping myself from the floor, rearranging my life, and integrating not one night of ayahuasca, but basically 3 years of work with the plant medicines. So the medicine has its curious way of working with us and teaching us. And the most wonderful thing is to see how the mind pattern breaks. And no matter how solid belief it was, like thinking that the work is done by the time the morning light hits our faces, no, the medicine knows our wishes and continues working with us in the best way possible, depending on how open our hearts are for the medicine and for learning itself. At one ceremony in that initiation process in Peru, I was challenged by some very grand, very strong being, and I felt it comes from within me, and it was ugly, aggressive, like all of kind of negative associations having creature, and I was just simply disgusted, shocked, and terrified by the fact that such kind of entity was living inside me, because I've done already much work up until that moment, and they were entities being purified from my system, but nothing in that scale. And so it grew, and it felt like it became of a dimension that is global, that is like, it has the strength of an epidemic, that kind of being. And it tried to rip me apart, basically. It tried to take my sanity away from me. Not like take and leave with it, but split me into pieces. And I saw forms of 100-feet worm or octopus. It's like it had many arms and could stretch and reach in different parts of my psyche at the same time and pull them apart. And it was the most challenging ceremony I've ever experienced. And well, I was prepared for that moment. So I knew exactly the moments, and the ceremony gets challenging. It's time to sit up, focus, start the meditation practice, start focusing on the breath, whatever to keep me centered. And because this entity was trying to pull me apart, the focus practice was the solution. And many people came to support me. I asked for help as well. And I could still perceive the room. But I at the same time could perceive what other people were thinking in the other side of my yoga, as if it was right beside me. So my consciousness really got out of my system, but I could still keep the threads towards it. It felt like it. And there were some other beings, human-like beings, coming to observe, and it kept on going in waves, this kind of process where it felt like I gathered myself together enough to have stance and more focus, and then it would come another wave where it takes over again, increases in strength, where the single moment of focus becomes like a precious anchor point, just to try and grab the other focus moment to keep me within me. And so it felt like it lasted for quite a while, this process, until in some sort of way, I don't know how, but it simply happened that I managed to convert this being into the stream of light, a white violet light, and put it into my heart. And my heart, my chest opened up so much that it became like a lighthouse, shining, radiating forward and backward, like this tunnel of light shining through me. And in that moment, I realized that that my heart's capacity that I had up until now, up until that moment, was like in so tiny that it's like literally invisible. The amount of love that I was able to perceive and give, and that entity, it turned out that it was put into my soul in the lifetime where I was a Buddhist monk in Tibet. And there they have a practice called Chod, where they exercise turning demons into allies. This is known at the moment as a practice of meditation, but back in the day, it was an actual practice of communicating with nature spirits. And if they are unfriendly or basically not conscious enough to spread good in the world and cooperate and help, then though such kind of practice would be done with those beings, and understanding them, and as well inviting them into like the human system and converting it into a friend. So it's like as well called the feeding the demon practice. And so feeding the nectar to to give the demon that what it needs, what it wishes for, because the demonic activity, or the negative aspect, is just like in all of us, it's just a scream for help, basically, or a side effect of the hurt, of the pain that is inside of the unconscious side of us. And so in that ceremony, it was like a time capsule that was released, and that entity got out of my system and tried tried to destroy me, basically. And as I understood, I consciously agreed for it to happen in that one of my past lives. And it was sealed within my system in some sort of way by probably my teachers and my masters. And in that ceremony, I was ready to overcome that lesson, because in that lifetime, I was not ready. So it was given to me as a gift for the future. For when I'm ready, it's going to be released, and then I will manage to find that strength and that wisdom and that light within me to realize that fighting is not the right way, and to realize that basically there's so much that goes behind it. But I really felt like if I wouldn't have done it, I would have come out of that ceremony insane. That was my feeling, that it was no joke and it was a real thing. And a shaman in that ceremony, after it was already done, he came to help me. And I literally could observe how he takes my consciousness pieces and pulls them back towards my core. And they were pulled back in another order than they left me. So some really core level change took place within my system. And the ceremony that followed that night, it was just 2 days later, I was reminded by the spirit of that ceremony and how challenging it was. And because in that ceremony, I was feeling very clever and trying to escape, trying to outsmart the medicine. And it basically pushed me into a corner, reminded me of that sort of challenge. Within my vision, rose in this enormous size and asked me, do I want to challenge it? And it was the moment where my ego collapsed in the facing the greatness of the spirit. And after that ceremony, I haven't been the same since. And there was a third ceremony in a row where my emotional body got ripped away of me, and I was given a new emotional body because the previous one was so damaged that it was, as I understand, was not worth repairing. And so in that ceremony, all of my major childhood traumas were revealed, and I needed to go through the healing process. And birth trauma and trauma of feeling like things are taken away from me. The things that were given to me, they're immediately taken away, and feeling unsafe and feeling that I need to do things or take responsibility for things that I'm not ready for, and so on and so forth. And it was a very long process, which ended up with me receiving this new emotional body and feeling confident, feeling like I can take care of myself, like I'm my own protector. And I was so sore after that ceremony, as if I was in a car accident, my physical body was hurting so much from that work. And it was like my holy trinity of ceremonies, after which I needed to skip a ceremony because I was in these 2 months initiation course. So there was no taking holidays and leaving the scene for 3 years. So I skipped one ceremony to integrate it a bit. But then that was the beginning of my initiation process. And it makes sense to call it a beginning because more intense stuff happened afterwards. So as well, breaking my expectations.
So I just want to reflect back. It to me, so originally in this particular ceremony, this entity stretched into the different parts of your psyche as an octopus limbs. It was moving outward. And you recognized that this was an entity that was still with you from a previous life. So having a past life regression and recognizing that you were a Tibetan monk in a past life, and that this entity was given to you because there's a tradition of transmutation, of Tibetan monks taking these negative energies or malevolent energies that don't know how to move throughout the field uh, let me rephrase that,
In a constructive one.
entity that was not moving throughout the field or through consciousness. Is that correct?
So I've remembered my past lives while ago before these events or these ceremonies took place. I started remembering my past lives when I was around 20 years old. I'm 33 now. And by the time that these events took place, I knew about those lifetimes since, I know, at least some 6, 7 years. So it was like a well-established ground-based knowledge of myself. And these energies, I don't like call it benevolent. I see it as an unconsciousness, and a part of ourselves, a part of our world, that's a part of this universe that is being personified. It's a shamanic way of being able to personify anything. Every single cell can be personified, and then every single organ can be personified. And so it's a consciousness building up our consciousness upon consciousness like a fractal. And so these pieces of or congregations of consciousness, you know, they can be enlightened or they can be in the shadow. The shadow is full of hurt, full of pain, of feeling disconnected from the source. So was talking about the entity like that is feeling is not connected to our common source, that is well intending and loving and nourishing. It was an entity that was full of rage and power and unrecognized force, and it made itself recognizable through a destructive output. And so through the whole process, I was not aware of what's happening. I was just perceiving my experience, and I had the visions of this entity having tentacles, and those tentacles were changing forms, where it was like a snake, like an octopus arms, like 100 feet worms, like all kinds of things that were slicky and not most pleasant feelings evoking for myself personally. And I perceived it as coming out of me. So that was a big shock and a negative feeling evoking realization from me, thinking that how could it be that this ugly thing was a part of me for so long? And I needed to step over that belief or that realization in the process in order to be able to welcome it back to me instead of like pushing it away. But that's what we do with all of our fears and difficult emotions. Yeah, it's nothing else. It's just a personified version of it in a very powerful form.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing in this particular journey is that you were doing incredible transmutation and transformation work of consciousness, wherever that consciousness exists, that was within you. And so when we're doing the inner work, and regardless of the medium, whether it is ayahuasca, meditation, therapy, we're doing similar behaviors of transmuting these energies. And these energies can be intergenerational, they can be collective, but they're these energies that reside within us that we've participated in, that we've adopted, and that we've pulled into our psyche. And what I'm hearing is that this one existed within you and you didn't even realize it was there after years of work. And this consciousness took form and you met it and you interacted with it. And instead of pushing it away, instead of damning it, instead of rejecting it, as many people are doing today with their egos or with aspects of themselves that feel too vulnerable or feel shameful or embarrassed of. Instead of pushing it and rejecting it, your heart absorbed it and brought it in and made it a part of you and gave it love. And that was the transmutation piece. Is that accurate?
I don't know if that's accurate. I have just a fraction of understanding of what actually happened. But I do realize that at the beginning I tried rejecting it, and I was horrified by the notion that such thing is part of me. And during that process, something changed within me in a way where I could no longer resist it, but maybe just like in this Buddhist practice, to offer it something, to mellow it down, to give something that it needs, to allow the transformation for it, and then welcome it as a part of me, as a part that, in a form that I would, my today's consciousness would welcome it. But it happens to us all the time that we don't know until we know, and that's my understanding is how our energy fields are programmed when we enter this life, that there are things, traumas, events that we need to revisit from past lives or from past generations and collective things, but we basically come with a very clear intent of which pieces of that package we're gonna deal with in this lifetime. And then there are triggers through events, through people, through the maturity level that activate those lessons. And so we are unconscious to that part of ourselves until it is time to bring it into consciousness. So there's no shame in not knowing what's still there to deal with, or when we are in our 30s or 50s and suddenly the hell breaks loose and there's this major topic and to deal with, or illness. It's not that we did something wrong or that we were so unconscious and walking through life with closed eyes. It's just simply there's time even for lessons in our lives. And concerning my experience, that being, it was encapsulated in my soul, I guess. It was sealed off from the rest of me. It was like this egg existing within me, but not being like it not creating any tension, not creating any irritations. It just was peacefully coexisting within my system. And then it came time, the egg cracked, and what's inside was released. And That's it.
You said something shifted inside of you when you took it into your heart, that there was a shift. And you said, I don't know, maybe I offered it something
That what
because there was a Yeah.
only afterwards, the day after I
Mhm.
shared about my experience with a group, and they were like eyes on the forehead. They say, we know about this practice. We actually teach the as a meditation, and it's called Chod. And that was for me the realization that it's a real thing. and
Yeah.
and it totally coincided with my experience. And only through that practice I learned that only when we offer something, we can allow the transformation of that entity that is living in lack, basically. So because it doesn't receive or don't have something that it wants, just like our emotional body.
Mhm.
I mean, nobody feels angry or frustrated or cry in the bed when they have everything they want. Then they are happy, then they're in peace or relaxed. And so I don't know if I have offered something to that entity, but I might have simply offered the acceptance instead of rejection. Maybe there was some interdimensional process taking place that I was not consciously perceiving. That's the standard of an ayahuasca ceremony. The work is being done on so many levels, and we can, even in elevated consciousness state, we can perceive only so much, because the medicine reveals only, it's basically pulls us a little bit down, like a level down into the subconscious, and brings whatever is in that limited scale available for us into our consciousness, so we can perceive only a little bit more than we perceive normally. And of course, that can be practiced and deepened, and the medicine work really helps to bring that consciousness level, extend the consciousness that we operate with.
What was the feeling like, you said, when you relaxed into it and you said, maybe I accepted it, maybe I offered it something?
The magic happened. It's I didn't have to do anything, it just happened. There was this light, and I saw it, that being pulled into the center towards my heart, transforming itself into shiny white violet light that is just magnificently beautiful. And then it went into my heart. And the magic was in not doing anything, basically, because all I was fighting, trying to focus and just trying. And it was definitely not done in a conscious way. It was on some deeper level of my being that there was this breakthrough that allowed this transformational process to happen. And it is very often so also in the work in the therapy, and when we work on ourselves on a certain topic. We walked away, and hopefully we continue walking it for as long as it is necessary towards the healing, towards the healthier state, no matter how many challenges or rocks are on the way. And then at some point the path ends, and we arrive somewhere. And that's it. It's not like at the end of the journey there has to be the biggest challenge overcome. Oftentimes it's a step-by-step process, and thousands of those steps accumulate, and then there is a tipping point. So I perceive it more in that way, that more through not giving up and continuing and just stretching in that direction, at some point created the breakthrough. Not that I reached a certain level of awareness, but it's more like clearing the water from the mud. You just continue filtering and filtering and filtering, and at some point it reaches that level of clarity where you can suddenly see through the water. So I perceive this process more as a in a comparison to those kind of examples.
So what I'm hearing is that you were there for 2-month initiation with the Shipibo, but the school continued after you left the Shipibo, after the initiation, that the medicine had basically showed you and reflected how your life was the initiation, how your school was the initiation. And what I'm hearing is that the medicine also said to you, you're doing your healing and you're reworking and you're integrating and you're going through your schooling so that you no longer need the medicine and that you can bring the wisdom and what you've learned and what you've acquired and solidify it into the human material experience. Is that an accurate reflection?
It is, and that is not only a description of my process, that is the description of my calling that I feel within me. So as I mentioned, my understanding is that the medicine work allows us to grow consciousness, basically transforms the subconscious into conscious. And if we do the integration work, we might not go back to the same consciousness level. We might keep a little bit of that depth within us if we diligently do our practices and practice conscious way of living. And so for me, after all these years of medicine work, this wish of keeping that level grew, and it became a daily practice. And at some point, medicine in one ceremony told me that it's time to go. It's time to part, but only on the physical
Time to
level.
stop doing the medicine.
Yeah, but only on the physical level.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
the guidance, it's still there. That's because that was the 3 years of my life where I felt the medicine within me, and I still did some medicine work, but that feeling was pretty much on a constant basis that I can always communicate, and with the medicine, that guidance, that inner support that is not my own support is always there. And I don't need some regular practice, not even a regular meditation practice, like literally nothing extra to maintain it. And I had an idea or similar kind of thoughts like a while ago, but you know how it is. Some thoughts, or we hear a comment or read something in a book, and that starts just nesting in us and growing, and just like until it overrides all the other priorities. And that was one of mine. And I just really wanted to be able to live it instead of just experience it here and there. And so what happened as well while I was still in Peru, that I had troubles keeping the medicine in me because I had previously heavy digestion issues. And so I was just asking the medicine to help me with my stomach, because it's from many ceremonies that took place maybe 4 times a week. It was literally hurting. And so that was not fixed. But the solution was even better because it helped me with my initial intent. I started taking just a tiny bit of medicine for the ceremonies, but having the same amount of intensity. And it's just something clicked in me that this material thing, it's something that helps us believe in the experience, something that triggers the allowance from our side to go into that experience, into that level of consciousness. And from then on, it was a wild journey of playing with it and seeing how it has literally no influence at all. It doesn't come in correlation. And I guess, that was a major thing for me to realize, because from then on, from my perspective, there are no limits. If that's just like a placebo effect, then why at all?
Yeah.
If the medicine works with me, not through the matter, well, then I guess I don't need it. I can work with a medicine without taking the physical form of the medicine. And that's, that this is the chain of thoughts, of realizations that lead me towards it. And so I haven't been doing the medicine work, now since, again, almost 3 years. So it's been 3 years of that initiation process, and then now 3 years of basically integrating that initiation process, rearranging my outer world. So the initiation process was rearranging me from inside. And then I had that finished, my outer world got rearranged. And I'm basically graduating in that second phase of the whole process, but without the actual medicine work. And I believe that I am arriving at the point where, well, I used to have much more vivid visions and insights that I don't have in that intensity anymore. But what I do have, what I didn't have before, is the perceivable grounding within my heart, the feeling of serenity and the cultivation of peace in everyday life. It became the topmost priority. It became my practice. The practice that is not based in some physical activity or appearance, or needing to take something in, needing to do something. The focus that is turned inwards, and depending on the situation, asking me, what do I need? So, or what would make me feel better? Or why is the situation bothering me? And as this became my focus, cultivating that calm space and spending more and more time in it, it became so much more valuable than all of those colorful, strange, insightful journeys that I had with and without the medicine. And the mind got calmer and clearer, and I don't miss perceiving so much of the subtleties of my surroundings, other people, or like other realms. A friend of mine reminded me of I think it was a Japanese saying in the spiritual context, that in one's life, there is a phase where there is a mountain, and then there is no mountain, and then there is mountain again. So I believe that I'm in the phase of no mountain at the moment, and I enjoy it very much. But I am as well very certain that there will be a mountain again, but with all the qualities of the valley that I made my own. And I rather live in the valley than in that emotionally tumultuous, spectacular, exciting, terrifying, and all kinds of ways emotionally not grounded states.
So what I'm hearing is that the experience with the medicine had opened up enough of you that you could continue to access those aspects of the subconscious without consuming the actual medicine. So the medicine is permeating and moving throughout you. And with the integration work that you are doing, you are allowing yourself to continuously to go back and tap into it. I've always recognized after the first ceremony that once you invite her in, it stays in with you within you, that you always have access to her again. And through the subtleties of the emotional body of the psyche, when we really perfect those nuances of keeping those open, we can experience very similar experiences as if we consumed the liquid form of the medicine. And I'm very curious for you, what was the integration work for you that helped you get to this space?
Because I don't feel like I was doing ever something specific to integrate the medicine work. I had an interest in understanding how our world works since a very young age. I started from reading philosophical books, and then it didn't seem to bring anything to me anymore. And then I decided that maybe the next best thing to do is to study astrophysics, because then I'm gonna to get understand so much about our universe. And then I discovered meditation and spiritual practices and started digging deep into the inner world, because I realized that getting answers from inside is so much more so faster than looking outwardly and seeking answers there. So that was my realization, that says, yeah, just inside there is no time space, and you can, just get the answers in a split of a second if you are connected. So I was always very exploratory in that sense, and understanding my own psyche and how past experiences and my origins ancestrally, but as well collectively, and it's like all kinds of things. These are all the questions that interest me very much, and I all of my life was seeking find answers to all kinds of nuances related to those questions. So I did nothing else concerning the integration work but look deeper, and I just wanted to be aware of things. I wanted to understand things. It's who I am. I love seeing patterns and seeing how after so many steps and so many alterations, it still influences us. And that became my daily, everyday practice. And I recognize that I can help others through it because I'm, so skilled in looking past the surface for so many years. I can see fast and clear what concerns the patterns of other people as well, and because they maybe didn't invest many years in that direction, it's not that clear for them. So that's what therapists do, I guess. And so basically I would take what realizations there were in the ceremony and just go deeper with them. But I guess maybe it doesn't fall into the integration work label, but I feel like after we start digging deep and dealing with our emotional topics, the exterior world reflects those things, and depending on the topic, there might be some negative feeling reflection from other people and circumstances. And that's the badass work, integration work that I've been doing, and I say that is the toughest of all. And when that resurfaces, that's the opportunity of dealing with it for good. Because in ayahuasca ceremony, these are just like worlds of opportunities being presented to us. And yeah, so the question is what it takes to manifest it in this world. And after this inner work is done, the outer world starts showing. And that's the real test. Are we really done with inner work? Are we really reached the state where we can face our fears and make a self-loving decisions? So I was a little bit struggling with answering this question because I don't feel like I've done something for the integration work. I feel like I was diligently, continuously focusing on continuing with the inner work. And then the world brought the integration work for me. And then I had to make a choice. Do I want to run away from it? Do I want to deal with it? Can I face it?
I would say that you very much were doing integration work. You may not have a label for it, but as somebody who's an integration coach, I'm actually seeing the labels in the patterns quite clearly. So I'm seeing mindfulness, I'm seeing self-awareness, I'm seeing awareness of others, I'm seeing awareness of external circumstances and how your internal environment is reflecting a new external environment. I'm seeing observation of self. As you mentioned, these external environments occur, and it is, have I done enough work to meet this external environment? Have I done enough work that I can show up in a different way in these external issues? You mentioned the badass work, right? When we're doing the inner work, mindfulness, awareness of others is some of the most basic but powerful work that we can do. For many, it starts in meditation. For some people, they need plant medicine to instigate it. Some people go through extremely traumatic childhood experiences that jolt them and kind of give them that spaciousness between the ego and the spiritual self, that they do start practicing mindfulness and self-awareness at a very early age. There's all kinds of external influences that can support that level of mindfulness, and even the pattern recognition, like that level of observation, is an incredibly beautiful integration skill. And so I'm hearing really beautiful work on that level in terms of integration. If you weren't integrating, you would be behaving and interacting with your external and internal environments the exact same way as when you went in and took the medicine, which, we do see people doing. They do not want to sit in the inner work because that's where the most work really is. We can all show up at ceremony and drink the medicine and have amazing visualizations, but the inner work, the integration work that happens afterwards, that's the powerful shit.
So I don't call it integration work, probably because I started doing this kind of practice, or it's not a practice, it's more like an approach towards life. I've been living this way since many years before I started doing the medicine work. And so for me, it was simply medicine work was a great amplifier, but I've never felt having trouble to integrate any of it. But the desire then arose, well, just to live in that continuum without the peak of ups and downs in the consciousness level. And nonetheless, I wouldn't change it for anything, those experiences. And there were, of course, ceremonies where I reached with my consciousness the realms that I wouldn't dare to dream of reaching from my everyday consciousness level. And those will stay with me for the rest of my life, I guess, as something indescribable, but on the soul level, so much giving and enriching. So, for example, in one ceremony, I was catapulted to the dimension where I saw that everything that is material is there, and I am behind the phase where matter existed or where matter was created. And so I felt that I was with God, because that's God's perspective of its own creation. And that's probably the only thing that I can say about that experience. But when I came out of that ceremony, I knew that I was with God, whatever God is. But that's probably was the closest as I conceptually can understand of being with the creator. And on the other hand, it enhances the belief and the faith in those things that really ground me in this earthly experience. Mm. Having the knowing that there is something bigger, something more. Having the knowing that the matter is not all. Having the knowing that I exist without matter. Like, these things I knew before, but I can't deny the impact of that kind of experience in the ceremony, of what it does to me, to my faith, to my grounding, to my simply belief that there are maybe more meaningful things than accumulating wealth.
How much of it do you believe is the subconscious or even the ego having an experience? Or is the plant medicine an entity, a spirit that is honestly opening a door for you and allowing you a perspective that you weren't able to have before? There's some beliefs that it's an elevated version of consciousness and that the experiences are very much truth. And then there's other people who come out of ceremony thinking, wow, that was a wild ride, but I don't trust myself to really know what was real and what wasn't real. And I'm curious about your perspective on that.
I believe that the medicine brings nothing else but what we are, even if we cannot see it in our everyday life. So it's a reflection, a mirror of who we are, and a help to see what's in that mirror. In a deeper sense than we are able to see in our daily lives. But the interpretation of what we see is nothing short of the ego and our own personal perspective. And I would have loved to be more skeptical about my own experiences of ayahuasca ceremonies before, because there were times where I fell into the beliefs of what I saw, what I thought, how I interpreted it was real, and then clung to it for years. And it served nothing else but my inner lack that wasn't such a big need of those interpretations. Those interpretations gave me something that otherwise I couldn't find to support myself innerly, psychologically. And those beliefs, those interpretations needed to break down many times. And it was the most beautiful realization afterwards on how medicine knows, basically, how medicine sees us better than we see ourselves in many ways, and presents us with the experiences and visions, pretty much knowing of how our interpretation is going to be. And that itself becomes another lesson. And so for me, the realization at that point of the belief breakdown was just how the medicine helps us. And our belief systems are such a big barrier in our lives in
Yes.
so many ways. And what it takes to break down certain beliefs, it's not easy. Not even with therapy work, not even with many ceremonies. I'm fascinated by it, and to find a way to trick the system into breaking down a belief, I think
Yeah.
that's genius and extremely healing, extremely potentially life-changing as well. So the medicine tricked me many times into believing me into something, and I blame myself for it.
Yeah.
I was the who chose to believe it.
I'm a transcendental coach. At least that's how I show up as an active service to others. And when people aren't quite sure what that is, my explanation is the work that I invest in is comparable to that of doing ayahuasca without the purging. It is completely demolishing belief systems. It is completely reworking our perspective. It is challenging even our understanding of language that we use to identify or understand the self. And as I work with clients in this process, I watch them dissolve their ego. Some of them, their ego death is profound and heart-wrenching and comes with magnificent grief. And then others take it in pieces as they go and they integrate it. And the way that they move in that dance is beautiful as they let go of a developed perspective of self and even the language, the mindset, the beliefs. It's an incredibly beautiful level of work. And my perspective is that if you're using transcendental coaching and plant medicine and a spiritual practice, that you're setting yourself up for some of the most magnificent success to really be a creator, a conscious creator in this material experience, and even being able to transcend the material experience and develop a life and experience that goes beyond the normal human perspective of what it is to be in a human incarnate. When you're experiencing, or when you're in an experience with Madre, with ayahuasca, how does the spirit, the entity of her present herself to you? Does she take form? Is she personified?
I've never had such experiences. I had many people telling about it, or how this medicine shows herself as a snake or something, but I personally have never seen the medicine in my visions. But one profound take that I have from this ceremonies, I personally used to enter the space where it's difficult to describe, but it's as if it was pulling me into some other reality, and I would have an audio perception of that reality. And I would, each time when the ceremony starts and I would enter in that space, after a while it would just got familiar. I knew where I was and or where the medicine takes me. And I had the realization that what I'm hearing is the spirit talking. It's the spirits in plural talking. And I guess to answer this question, that's the closest that I can get with it. I had this intimate sensation of hearing the medicine, but not seeing. I've seen other entities or other plant medicines in my visions, but I have the feeling that the ayahuasca as a spirit is always behind me. It's as well a physical sensation of having that presence behind me. And she is enveloping me and showing me, like projecting upon me and in front of me onto my vision. So I have those two to relate to the medicine as the spirit. It's more of a feeling of having a friend beside, not in front.
So when she is interacting with you, how does she communicate? For some, they mention downloads. For others, it's a lot of visualizations. Is there a particular style in which you receive her?
I think the style in which we perceive medicine is directly related to our personal gifts. And some people are more gifted in the clairvoyance department, others in clairaudience, and some are just feel through their bodies. And I was always a very visual person, and so for me the ceremonies are normally very, very visual. And I have a big sensitivity related to my body and my emotions. So I rarely hear things in the ceremony. That's more of a aspect of myself that I would wish to develop more, but it's physical and it's emotional and it's visual for me personally. And then I have as well the direct knowing gift, I would say, that in ceremonies sometimes appear. And these as well the experiences that I refer to as, no mindfuck interpretations, because I just know that I know, and I know that I haven't put my interpretation upon it, but that the note was there. But that's more rare than the everyday visual perception, I would say.
As we bring this to an end, I'm very curious, is there something that you would like to share with the viewer? Maybe the viewer is curious and hasn't participated in ayahuasca ceremony before. Maybe the viewer is new to the space. Or maybe the viewer has no intentions, but just really likes receiving the medicine of these conversations. I'm very curious, what would you like to say to them? And is there an overall synopsis of what you've learned about yourself in the process of sitting with ayahuasca?
I want to go controversial on this and say, don't do it. I mean, there are so many different practices and traditions in this world, and so many ways to develop our spirituality and consciousness. And we don't have to go all crazy out of our minds, eco-friendly, neo-artistic, and esoteric in our approach to life. It's enough to practice being kind to our next ones and take care of our surroundings and watch that we would live in a clean and tidy environment. And this is the daily practice. No medicine work gonna help if that practice is not being done. And no medicine work gonna be a groundbreaking healing experience if that practice was not done before and after and during. So the medicine work is not the answer. But if the practice is practiced, was being practiced, and will continue to be practiced, then the medicine work might help. But that's not the only way to accelerate or increase or support the process. And it is a very violent at times process in terms of how it rips our consciousness apart and then demands of us looking through the gap, through the split into the darkest corners of our psyche, and shows us how much hurt and pain there's still within us to heal. I personally don't always find it a gentle way for myself to go with it. And I ask myself, why am I doing the medicine work? Why am I putting myself through that roller coaster? For what reason? And for me, the answer was that I was trying to escape the burdens of this material world. And some people are very materially grounded and need to find spirituality and some sense in the world. Other people are spiritually grounded and have difficulties in living the material realm. And I am that second type of person. And for me, going out of my body into some crazy ass spiritual experiences was my comfort zone, even though it was intense. And so it can become an escapism instead of a healing journey. But because the medicine is a conscious entity, in those cases like mine, the ass is gonna be kicked and the serious fall down to the ground gonna take place afterwards as well. And that's not a fun process. So why did I have to choose to go through that intensity instead of just choosing of being self-loving and kind towards myself? And I needed to get that kick in my ass spiritually to get grounded and say, hey, the most important things are the ones that I see around me in my everyday life. And I don't see why the medicine should be the answer. because the answers are within us. And if we struggle seeing them, we shall, of course, go looking for answers. And then maybe some of us will find the medicine work as the supporting tool. But it's important to preserve the focus, and the focus is on, or in my perspective, should be on living a good and kind and well-intended, self-nourishing and our surroundings nourishing life. And if there is other intent towards doing the medicine work, well, I would simply encourage to ask for what is the true intent? Why am I curious about it? Why do I want to do the medicine work? And then put it into a perspective. Because I started doing the medicine work because I was just simply enormously driven towards it, but I haven't questioned why. Only after I had those intense experiences and learning processes and crashes have I realized my true intent and why that drive was there. And just like I described it in the introduction of my book, I do intend, and I was intending right from the start, there was this knowing in me that I want to learn the gentle way of living towards myself and towards the outside world. And the medicine work, yeah, it's questionable if it is a gentle way. Medicine can be very loving, but as well very tough and challenging on us, and we have to be prepared for all.
Thank you. Jurgita, it was such a pleasure to sit with you in this space. Thank you for being open enough to share your experiences and your wisdom and your homage and your prayer and offering at the beginning. Thank you for continuing to integrate and to do your inner work throughout the remainder of your incarnation here. I appreciate you and have so much gratitude for this conversation.
I thank you for the opportunity for us to meet and to exchange in our experiences and hopefully bring some new thoughts in the people that are watching and maybe some interesting questions to answer for themselves. And it's all but a continuous journey of discovering ourselves as we truly are, or more truly are, because we might never end up knowing